You know, Bruce Fein, the biggest story that we did not see coming is Jeffrey Epstein. And the Wall Street Journal's recent piece about Trump and his artwork and the communication between he and Epstein on his 50th birthday was just seismic, if it's true. And you've got to believe that the Wall Street Journal authenticated what they reported.
Yeah, I think there are initially at least two source rule for newspapers like the Journal or Washington Post or New York Times. Obviously, the evidence is circumstantial. You know, this is not somebody in flagrante delicto, but it comes from a source that you would expect would be friendly for Mr. Trump, and it's not in isolation. I think that
you know. Let me just say this to you. It really hits home for me as the owner of a major newspaper, the Baltimore Sun. I must tell you, this happened in 2003. If this was a story about Bidens or the Obamas or Trump or Bush, I don't think I would ever have published it. I just don't see, you know, and I'm torn with it. I understand what the Wall Street Journal is doing, but for me, it's just something I don't think would avail.
But go back a little bit earlier.
Am I wrong?
Well, I think you need to go back a little bit earlier.
Okay.
Bill Clinton, Monica Lewinsky, Jennifer Flowers. Those were stories published in the Washington Post, in the New York Times.
That's a fair point.
And in fact, they ultimately, in different ways, led to his impeachment and trial. So I think you're speaking a little bit too swiftly about suggesting that these kind of issues would not make newspapers. If we go back even further, I think you have more truth on your side. For example, John F. Kennedy's philandering was covered up. It was more, it was substantial, according to all biographies of President Kennedy. Lyndon Baines Johnson had his adulterous affairs. But that was at a different time. Then we've kind of moved into a new era with Clinton.
Why is this Jeffrey Epstein story uniting Republicans, Democrats, people on all sides of the aisle? Is it just about transparency?
Well, we know in Washington everyone has ulterior motives. So I think that on the conservative side, the MAGA side, I think it's become very, very inflated and controversial because there had been so many representations by MAGA and Mr. Trump himself that when he came into office, the Epstein Files would show a client list and it would expose a lot of people in high places of having indulged perhaps underage sex. And so they created an expectation that the files would be forthcoming. And then when this last week, the Attorney General said, no, there's nothing there, they felt betrayed. On the Democrat side, their ulterior motive is the more that you can throw mud at your opponent, and it's obviously not a credit if you have sex with underage girls, then that's advantageous to you. So I don't think there's the same motivation involved, but there you have a coincidence, if you will, of interest here that finds both on the left and the right this clamor.
I thought one of the president's lowest points in all this was when he referred to his supporters as weaklings, and I don't want your support. That only energizes that. Are you hiding something here? Why would you? Where did that come from?
Yeah, and then he's blaming this all on the Democrats. So it goes back to a Shakespearean, methink he doth protest too much. Remember, as a matter of law, if you want the grand jury information in the public domain where everyone can see what was investigated.
Congress has the power.
Congress can override the secrecy rule of 6E of the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure.
Because before you even get to that, because do explain to our audience that the grand jury testimony is confidential.
Yeah.
But Congress has the power to override it, because you hear Mike Johnson saying he wants this to go public, but what he's not telling you, and you know the Democrats would support it.
Yeah. Where's the statute? And we know Mr. Trump, if he can get his big, beautiful bill through, he can get through a bill that overrides the secrecy presumption of Rule 6E of the Federal Rules of Criminal Procedure. Now, he's also suggested that the Attorney General will ask the court whether the court will permit openness, because there's a good cause exception to secrecy. But why are you waiting to ask the courts to do this? You can do it directly through Congress, and you got majorities in the House and the Senate and the Republican side. And when he exercised his political influence, he was able to get this bill through. So we know that he could get the statute enacted if he wanted it.
You know, the other thing that looms here is Elon Musk saying after this eruption between he and the president that the Jeffrey Epstein files would never see the light of day because Mr. Trump was in them. And then just recently, when all this erupted, he said, why won't the president be transparent? What does he have to hide? And so no matter how bitter he may have been, obviously he knows something.
Well, he does, but I think the important thing is that we still have a presumption of innocence.
Yes.
And that until we actually have the records, and because Mr. Musk has his own ulterior motives for being angry at Mr. Trump because he kind of got exiled from his Doge. And he's also suggested that he would deport Mr. Musk because at one time he was here in the United States not on a student visa but engaged in business. So we know that there are ulterior motives on both sides. It's not just Mr. Trump that has that incentive.
I'm Armstrong Williams, and we'll be back. One thing that everybody agrees on, I think, is human trafficking of underage girls and boys is never acceptable. Mothers, fathers, and it seems as though this goes on and people think it's at the highest places with people with power and the exploitation of these kids. And this, for many people, the reason why they are so outraged against Jeffrey Epstein is because of the accusations of human trafficking.
Well, yes, they ripened into charges, and he committed suicide before his last federal indictment was tried.
If you believe it was suicide.
If you believe it was suicide. Well, even the Justice Department's saying it's suicide, but we don't know.
I saw that.
It could be massage.
I saw the video, and I got to tell you, it was stitched together at least 2 minutes and almost 3 minutes.
All right.
It was stitched together, and you could tell there was something that was left. Even I was saying, what is going on here?
Yeah, I mean, but it causes you to ask questions, given the notoriety of Jeffrey Epstein, that why would anyone want to associate with him unless there was some rather ugly motive of the type you've insinuated. He's not. You don't talk philosophy with Jeffrey Epstein or the Picasso or Van Gogh or music or culture. So you have to ask, why would somebody being associated with him? Again, that's not proof, but at least some reason for skepticism about whether they would also crave the same indulgence.
So obviously, for now, the president is fine because you mentioned that the Washington Post covered the story about Jennifer Flowers and Monica Lewinsky. It led to his impeachment because you had a Republican majority in Congress. Obviously, that is not something the president has to be concerned about now. But what happens if he loses Congress in the midterm elections? Could this come back to haunt him?
Oh, it certainly could. And moreover, the Democrats are never going to be for him, but you know, if he loses some of his base that's outraged by this, it takes it to a new level. It's just not the Hollywood Access tape about grabbing women's genitals. Now engaging with underage girls, as you point out, it takes you to a Sodom and Gomorrah level of depravity, and he loses his base, or at least a partial base. It'll embolden other Republicans who are kind of on the fence and frightened of Trump politically. They'll abandon him as well, because they care about their own fate more than Donald Trump's.
Here's one thing that's often adrift in America, is just how much people actually care about morality and right and wrong. They care.
Well, some of them do, but I think
this is a moral issue to Americans.
It was, but
this is not a political issue, by the way. This is about morality.
I understand, but that was true with Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky.
Yeah, but it's different because listen, the American people do not like hypocrisy.
Yeah.
The American people don't trust the deep state. They don't trust the establishment. And actually, in fact, they believe that maybe the Republican and Democrats are protecting each other when it comes to the Jeffrey Epstein list, because you have no idea who's on the list. But they don't believe what the White House said, in that Epstein was not bribing, intimidating, and using it as leverage.
Blackmail.
Blackmail.
Yeah.
They don't believe that.
No, of course not. And I think you're right in some sense. Most everyone in Washington has skeletons in their closet, and why everybody covers up from everybody else. And I know that, and why Clinton wasn't even pushed as far as they were, because we know on the Republican side, Newt Gingrich, Robert Livingston, they had their own what they called youthful indiscretions, but they were doing the same thing, maybe not quite on the same industrial scale as Mr. Clinton. But the fact is, politics attracts people with very little morality to them, and I do think that there's huge cover-ups of the depravity that's prevalent on both sides of the aisle.
So let's go back to this point. This happened in 2003. You talked about the youthful indiscretion. Should this matter to us?
Yeah, I think.
And how should it matter to us today?
It matters because these are role models, and that it encourages a further degradation or decay in our culture. When you say, well, if the president can do it, then why should I be reluctant to do it? If the president gets away with it and it's immoral, it's going to filter down into the youth. And they're going to grow up and feeling, well, they shouldn't be ashamed. They don't need any moral standards. They can be in the White House as well. So when you're in the public light, you have a higher obligation to act with rectitude, because it's just not your life. You're influencing countless others. That's why it matters. And these things, again, become symbols. And I do believe that there's a deterioration after Bill Clinton. Well, if he can do this with Monica Lewinsky and these others, and he's celebrated and he's elected a second time, and everybody says, well, men just lie about sex, that degrades the whole culture. And I think that, in fact, our culture today is worse off than it would have been without Bill Clinton. I don't want to blame all of him. A lot of other men do this as well. But it is a matter of cultural respect and honesty and standards. Because if you can lie about this, it's kind of a gateway into other lies, into business and politics and otherwise. It's a very, very great danger, where so much of our country and our liberties depend upon the unwritten rules of behavior. You just don't push things too far because they're beyond the pale, and you remove everything, any limits, you'll find, again, we know what the result of Sodom and Gomorrah was. They got demolished.
And we'll be back.
It is easier to build up strong children than to try and repair broken men.
The streets are plagued with crime, violence. There's a lot of poverty, and it's all a result of lack of education that's happening in our schools. So it really is a crisis.
We come from very different political perspectives, but we've come to the same conclusion, and that is there is a crisis in the classroom. children are being deprived of quality of life because they're being deprived of a good education. We must solve this problem. It's incumbent upon all of us to join hands together to get this done.
We can't afford to wait one more day before we address these issues, because every day we lose another child.
Let's stop the politicking. Let's stop the games. Let's really do something to give these kids a real chance at life and being a part of that American dream.
We need accountability for funding. Many of the districts where you're seeing very low test scores, students graduating with very low literacy and math comprehension rates, they are receiving a lot of funding. So where is the money going where our kids aren't being adequately educated?
If you believe every child is deserving of a quality education, please go to educationjusticefoundation.com. Yes, the Wall Street Journal reported a tawdry letter from Trump, which was discovered in Epstein's 2003 birthday album. It implicated in such a private collection enough to raise concerns. And you ask this question: how should the public evaluate the credibility of the claims given Trump's denial and threat to sue? And are these documents sufficient to prompt a broader investigation or merely a PR battleground? And could this rise to defamation, or is Trump simply responding to protect his reputation? And also, how should the DOJ respond to the Wall Street Journal's claim? Are they obligated to verify the letter? Is there going to be a special prosecution? What legal hurdles exist around verifying or accessing private third-party records like Epstein's albums? And how do we know that what the Wall Street Journal reported was not created by AI? Because I must tell you, it did not seem like Trump's artistic hand. I've never seen any drawing of his, and it certainly didn't seem like the kind of way he communicated. And certainly he threatened with a lawsuit because he says especially it violates him. But here's the question, though. The public in Trump's base has forgiven him of everything. I mean, it is almost unthinkable that there could be anything worse that they would need to forgive him for. And given that, if there were some wrongdoing, it seems to me for him, given where he's come from and how much they're willing to forgive him, he said, look, let me just put it all on the table. This is what it is. This happened in 2003. This just did not happen. Let me apologize again, but let me come to you clean. There is no question in my mind the public would have forgiven him again, no matter what it is.
I agree with you, and that's what makes his response somewhat puzzling.
Yes.
Because I agree, if he can act, I went on Twitter, said, if Mr. Trump said I was #1 on the client list, and I apologize, and I'm sorry I did it, I was rash or whatever, it would go away.
Yes.
The story would be ended. I mean, he's not quite there, but he almost did. The Hollywood Access tape, he never apologized for that. He's never apologized for, sleeping with Stormy Daniels when his wife is just given birth to a child. So, it didn't hurt him whatsoever. In the polls, his political base didn't diminish at all. So I agree with you. I don't really understand why he seems to be reluctant to concede, well, maybe he did indulge with Jeffrey Epstein, so what, I don't believe that he'd suffer politically whatsoever. And I think this goes back to the repeat performance in Washington where it's the cover-up that's the killer. It's the cover-up. If Richard Nixon, after Watergate, said, yeah, we gave the money, we apologized, it was stupid, he wouldn't have had to resign. The Watergate issue would have gone away. But I know he said these words, he used an epithet, contrition is, and he wouldn't say he was contrite. In some sense, Clinton had a problem too, because he never apologized, whatever he did with regard to lying under oath. So I just think this is not politically smart for Trump to do what he's doing.
But here's the thing. I don't know how much time I have left before I have to go to break. Did you say 30? I think he said. Okay. Why the Wall Street Journal? That takes it to a whole different meaning. It's not the Wall Street Journal. It's not the New York Times. It's the Wall Street Journal. which is owned by Rupert Murdoch and Fox. What message is Fox and other media sending to the White House? And the Wall Street Journal has been pretty balanced and pretty harsh with Trump in their editorials and op-eds. Let me just be clear. They've not given him a pass on anything.
Well, I think that the Wall Street Journal is like other businesses there. They're catering to what their audience and readership is looking for. And they know that they have a large portion of the Trump base, and their readership wants the Epstein Files out.
Oh, interesting.
Because, remember, they have their interests first, before Trump. They're not a Trump wholly owned subsidiary. And they're looking at what their readership's going to be interested in. This is going to boost the Wall Street Journal circulation off the charts.
We're going to come back with some final thoughts with Bruce Fein. I'm Armstrong Williams.
As a home buyer, you need a lender who cares about your home ownership dreams. United Security Financial has been helping families secure their dream homes for 30 years. We're a national fair practice lender that provides affordable mortgages and low down payment programs to eligible home buyers. To learn how United Security Financial can help you secure your dream home, call 1-800-373-4186.
You know, where is the First Lady watching this all over again?
Well, I think she's mortified. She was conspicuously silent with regard to the Stormy Daniels.
She never went to the court once.
Yeah.
Once during his trials.
Never.
Never.
Jean Carroll trial, this one. I think she feels humiliated in part. And it may well be she's the $64,000 answer to the question why Trump has resisted doing what we said he should do politically. Say, yeah, I was number one on the list, who cares? Is because she's warned him, you can't cross that Rubicon. Otherwise, I can't stay with you.
How do you see all this playing out eventually?
Well, I think that probably the pressure will come for Congress or the courts to release the grand jury information. That probably does have very, very controversial items in it. But I do not see that being a substantial role in the 2026 elections.
So it's not going to cost them any political capital, this?
In the short run, but it'll blow away. Just like Bill Clinton, Monica Lewinsky didn't lose them any political capital.
You know, the other surprise is the mainstream media hasn't really just eviscerated him with this. They've been very tame in their coverage. That's the other surprise. Yeah. They're not pouncing. Why?
Yeah, they may have their own executives have problems like that. Remember, there are people in the media who, after Me Too, had real problems. So it could be that they see that they don't want to have their own skeletons in the closet come out.
Or maybe they don't want to get sued.
Or they don't want to get sued. But I don't know. And sometimes you get sued by the president, it can boost your circulation.
Do you actually think he'll sue the Wall Street Journal?
No.
But then if he doesn't, then what does that tell us?
Well, tell us what we already know, that he's resisting and he's worried about the full disclosure would show.
Let me say this. As a media owner, it's a tough job. You got to make some tough decisions, and you got to always make the decisions that's in the best interest of the public, because when it's all said and done, we are citizen journalists and broadcasters, and that's who we report to. That's why we're the fourth estate, independent of any political party or anything else. If we lose our realm of the coin, which is trust, we lose everything. We pray for the president, we pray for the country, and thank you so much, Bruce, for coming in and sitting with us. Thank you, WJLA 24/7 Howard Stark Holdings. I'm Armstrong Williams.
If he sues, he'll be subject to a deposition, right?